and hits the surface and jumps and spears me right in the head, cuts my head open. I've got a baseball cap on, and he had like a 6-inch Yozuri in his mouth. The treble hooks go through my hat, through my scalp. So now the lure is like hooked to my head, the other hook dangling right by my eye and my face, and the houndfish is still attached, flopping.
All right. Welcome back. So for those following on the recent strike mission in New Zealand, I'm pretty happy to report that it was absolutely insane. I'm not going to give away too much, but it was dead set one of the best charters I've ever been on with Brendan Churchy over there. So the full vid's going to be out this week, and then we start planning for a monster trip to Mexico. And if any of you guys have any ideas for quick strike missions a little closer to home in Australia, then just leave a comment or shoot us a DM on Instagram, and we'll see what we can make happen. So today we have a good friend of mine, and he's an absolute machine when it comes to kayak fishing, and I'm pretty pumped to learn a little more and hear some more about his experiences. So welcome, Lance Clinton. Thanks for jumping on, mate.
Thanks so much, Dan, for having me. I feel kind of honored to be on the podcast. You guys are putting up quite the content, the last few years.
I appreciate that, mate. And we've been friends for a long time on there, so it's good to finally sit down and have a chat with you. And obviously, your stuff is insane. So I will put all your details down in the description. So I definitely urge people to go and check that out, because what you're doing off a kayak is mental. And I sort of wanted to set the scene a little bit with that, just to give people a bit of an idea of what sort of level kayak fishing we're talking about. It's not every day, small fish fishing on a lake or anything like that. You're out in the open ocean. But I want you to tell me a little bit more. You had a recent run. I think you were the coach, was it? And competitor maybe of the Pan American Championships, if I've got that right. Can you tell me a bit about that, mate, and what that was all about?
Actually, I got approached. I live in Costa Rica. I've been down here a very long time, but I grew up in the United States, and I have a lot of relationships and friendships with the fishing community here. And Costa Rica invited me to be on the Costa Rican national team for this new circuit of international tournaments they're doing, and I declined simply because I'm not really a tournament fisherman. And I just turned it down. And then later the USA team called me and invited me, and I turned them down too. But then later I found out, this is like a year and a half ago, I found out that the winner would go to the Worlds in Spain, and I needed to be in Spain to do some business right about that. I said, well, I guess I'll jump in there with the USA. And so the competition was actually in Costa Rica. And, if you fish, it's a huge advantage to be on your home turf. So we did a lot of pre-fishing. We had the first Pan American event here in Costa Rica. I think we had 14 of us on the USA team. And my friend, another American guy who lives down here, he and I got the gold and silver in that event. And we won the overall Pan American event for the USA. And it was kind of funny because I'm kind of a hard ass, and I don't really want to compete because I get a little too serious. I'm very competitive. And about, days before that tournament started, I think most of my teammates hated me because I was cracking the whip so hard. But everybody was happy when we were walking around with those gold medals. So yeah, that's how that goes. After that, they asked me if I'd be the coach, and we did a world event in Spain, which was in Valencia during those massive floods last year. So that kind of destroyed that whole tournament, and that didn't, there really nothing happened with that. And we restarted this year's Pan American event in Mexico, and we got second. We got the silver medal in that, and I got the silver overall in that in the individual. So
Yep. So you're talking pretty serious stuff. What kind of fish are you chasing out there? I don't know anything about the Pan American Championships over that.
Well, it depends on the fishery, So what we were catching in Costa Rica was much different than the species we were hunting in Mexico. Costa Rica is, for the tournament, it's got a rule structure that prioritizes like variety, and it's not really about size. So we were out there with micro jigs trying to catch lots of numbers and lots of variety. It's kind of a fun. I typically like hunting big fish, but if I'm not going to do that, then at least this rule structure was challenging and fun. So we were catching amberjack, golden trevally, snapper, mackerel, pompano, long list of grouper, what we call needlefish here, which are actually houndfish. It's a long list of species. Mexico, excuse me, Mexico is more about it was more about the yellowtail, which I believe is the same thing you guys have that you call kingfish in Australia,
That's what I
New
was chasing
Zealand.
in New Zealand. Yeah, yellowtail
Yeah,
kingfish. Yep,
yeah, hard
great fish.
fighting fish, fun to
Oh,
catch.
yeah, size by size, I reckon they're one of the top ones.
Yeah, they'll run on you, man. They'll pull
Yeah.
some drag for sure.
So they're pretty good fish. You're not chasing little things. They're all variety, which is good. And I do want to get into your Costa Rican fishery a little bit. But before we do that, mate, can you give us a bit of your backstory, Lance? Like where you grew up, life, and I guess how you found your way to Costa Rica and fishing itself?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit. It's kind of a sordid tale, but I'll give you a little teaser. I've been pretty transparent about my backstory in a lot of different venues, so I'll share just a little bit here. I grew up in Louisiana, nowhere near the ocean. I grew up freshwater fishing and hunting with my dad, and that was kind of the thing to do back then. And somewhere in my early teens, I had some injuries and some surgeries, and I ended up, you know, kind of down that wrong path. I was kind of part of that opioid epidemic in the United States, and inadvertently got on that road, and that lasted a long time, and things got pretty rough. And I eventually made my way to Costa Rica. It's still not well at all. And it was down here in 2002 that I kind of, I got my act together. I got clean in '02, and it's kind of weird. I look back and I've kind of lived two completely, and that was about halfway through my. I'm 55 now, so that was right at the halfway point of my life. I've lived two, completely separate and different lives. The second one has been much better.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I've actually said it before once on the podcast as well. How many people come from a bit of a difficult background like that and end up doing something pretty damn incredible, really, like the kayak fishing and just your whole life in itself. I love following along with it. But yeah, how many people turn it around and just do something incredible like what you're doing? So
I think
yeah,
quite a few, and I think about that all the time. And I think a lot of people end up on that path have, I don't know, maybe this is my ego talk. I don't really think so, because I'm not just talking about myself. I still am involved with people in recovery, and I think a lot of people end up on that path are gifted and intelligent and have the right kind of mentality to succeed. They're just like, I don't know. I think sometimes it's just I think sometimes people like that are more prone to seek that, like break from the constantly churning, thoughts in mind. So once you can get all that under control and embrace, the right path, and you can put all of that in the right as fuel in the right direction, I think you can be really successful in life. I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of people succeed coming from that. And I tell you something else. What it requires, the changes in mentality, the changes in perception, the changes in behavior, what it requires to get out of that is very transformative. You know what I mean? After what you go through in that, everything else in life just, you get clean and everything looks kind of easy.
yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're saying, and you're 100% right about that. So yeah, I'm totally on board with people turning it around and doing something special with their life and the difficulties that come with it, just making these other things a bit more simple for you. But is that why you found your way to fishing? How'd you end up there?
Well, I made my way to Costa Rica, and like I said, I wasn't exactly living my best life when I got here. But when I got here, I was in my mid to late 20s, and I started surfing. Well before I got clean, I think surfing kind of, to a large extent, probably kept me alive, because it was the one thing that I had in my life that had value, that I had some kind of passion for, even though I was a hot mess. I can remember distinctly every night at, like, I was using all day, and at like 6 or 7 at night, I would somehow, because I wanted to surf so badly the next day, I was able to put it down and, like, stop, just so I knew I had to at least get a few hours of sleep. So just the desire to surf gave me enough. It certainly didn't give me the willpower to get clean. I don't think we get clean on willpower anyway, but it gave me enough to not overdose, I think. I really do believe that it was, and I think when it was time to put it all down, I think it was really important to have something that valuable, that that I was that passionate about in my life. You know, I had a reason to live. I know that sounds kind of silly when we're talking about just riding waves or whatever, but you know, it was power. It was a powerful force. My, you know, getting clean gave me
Yeah.
something that you know, I can remember this. I can remember being in Costa Rica, and I always had somebody to blame for all my troubles. If they would, everybody would just leave me alone. It's the law's fault. It's the court's fault. It's the girlfriend's fault. It's the family's fault. You know, and what happened is I got down here and I started living this on the in the material, you know, sense. I didn't have any money, but what I was doing every day, I had a really good life. And one day I looked around, I was like, I've got nothing left to bitch about. I'm the problem. It's me. I'm
Yeah.
the problem. I've run out of things to blame because if I wasn't stepping on my own dick all the time, my life would be beautiful. And I always had an excuse before, so it was a powerful part of my recovery, really.
Was really facing that victim mentality and turning it around a bit. But there's definitely something magic about surfing. I don't know what it is. I love surfing, but there's something magic about surfing that can do that. And you plan around it and you get to bed early and you do all these things you wouldn't do without it. So I totally understand where you're coming from
But
there.
back to your question, I'll tell you how that ended up, you know, turned into kayak fishing. I did that for years, and you know, I wasn't like, you know, some of these savages that you'll have on your page, you know, like
You are, mate.
Burns, and you guys got some of those guys are just animals, man.
They're the
But
best.
no, I did have an opportunity. I was very blessed. I've traveled all over the world. I've spent, you know, well over a year of my life in Indo. You know, I've spent months and months, you know, camping on Nias, and I've been to the Mentawais, and you know, I've you know, gotten to surf some really good surf in my life, and you know, it's been a nice journey. But I can remember about, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago, I was down here and it was all about the surf. And then one day I saw a buddy come in. He had a little 12-foot Zodiac, and it's a surfer buddy of mine. They came in, they were pulling all these mackerel and other, you know, little fish out of there, and I thought that was so cool. And I'll never forget this. He gave me a mackerel. He's like, yeah, I have a mackerel. So I was kind of stoked. I was going to go home and cook this fish. And I'm walking home, and like people on the beach are like, oh, wow, like nice fish. Good job. Tell me. I was like, wow, I like the way this feels, man. I might need to go get a rod and reel and catch my own fish. So I'd never really done any saltwater fishing. So I went and got, you know, rigged up to fish off the beach and started doing that. And with no real, I was sober, you know, I was sober for years at that point, and didn't have any high expectations. I just, you know, wanted to do something pleasant. I started catching a few fish. I kind of like this. And I was always looking out there at the bait, and the bait was jumping just a little further than I could cast. And you know, I figured I needed a boat. I was too poor for that. That was it, man. I found a used Hobie kayak on I don't know, back in the Craigslist or whatever it was back then, and bought it, and that was the end of it, man. I jumped in that thing the first time. I can remember my first time paddling out. There's an outer reef here about 3 kilometers out. Bro, I knew nothing about kayaks. I knew nothing about kayak fishing. I was comfortable on a surfboard. I loved the ocean, but I can remember getting about halfway out there, and I'm like holding. I'm like, I didn't know if the thing was gonna sink, if it was seaworthy. But I made it out there and caught a couple of fish, and yeah, I got addicted from there, man. You know, I started catching fish and wanting to catch more and wanting to figure it all out. I like cracking the code on stuff. I like a puzzle. I like to figure things out. And that was a great fishing as a, you know, it's a deep puzzle. You know, it's kind of like surfing. It's the same way. I do good in activities that once I plateau out in something, I get bored with it. But like surfing and fishing, the learning curve is so like slow and gradual. You can never really plateau out. You know, you just keep learning, and that kind of stuff keeps me fed.
Yep. And there's so many ways to do it as well. And I do want to dive right into that whole kayak fishing scene, obviously. But before we do that, mate, tell me about the Costa Rica fishery itself.
I mean, people come from all over the world to fish here, both offshore and inshore. Sometimes I feel like our inshore fishing here is almost more special than our offshore. Though the offshore is world renowned. We've got billfish, we've got, you know, great. The mahi fishing's great here. The yellowfin. There's a storm outside, so hopefully that doesn't get loud on here.
I would
Right,
be right,
it's
mate.
monsoon season right now. Uh,
Okay.
but yeah, you know, we've got the yellowfin tuna, we've got the mahi, we've got the marlin, the sailfish, all of that, the wahoo. But and people come from all over to fish that, but you can find that in a lot of places up and down this coast, from Mexico down. You know, in South America, Australia. You know, a lot of folks have that kind of fishery. The Bahamas, South Florida, but the inshore fishing here, we've got some pretty exotic creatures. You know, like people come here to catch the big rooster fish. That's a highly
Yeah.
sought after inshore fish. The grouper fishing can be really good here. We have these giant broomtail grouper. We have Goliath, Pacific Goliath grouper. And then we have just all kinds of stuff. We've got pompano, we've got permit, we've got golden trevally. You know, I've got spots 2 miles to the same spot I told you about when I went on my first day. Just out past that, I can go to a bottom spot. And am I still working? Electricity just blinked here.
No, you're right, mate. I got you.
Okay, I think we got to back up. So okay, yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
So I've got little spots where I can walk outside my house, walk my kayak to the beach like a little red wagon on wheels, jump in it and paddle out, you know, hour paddle out, and bottom fish on a spot that's 110 feet deep. And on that one spot, I can catch jigging thunderstorm, jigging. I can catch 4 or 5 different species of snapper, golden trevally, pompano, yellowfin tuna, mahi. I've caught thresher sharks there, amberjack, grouper, broomtail. It's just this massive,
In a single spot, you caught all that.
literally like in a spot with a 30, you know, a 10 meter a radius, one bottom spot. It's absurd. You know, it's not like that every day, but all those fish I've caught right there.
So it's a special fishery.
In my opinion, the inshore fishing here is just phenomenal. And the beauty is we get a pretty, oh, it's not like Hawaii, but we get a relatively steep drop off. So there's spots here where you can get a mile offshore and be in a couple hundred feet of water. And, you know, it's just there's spots here where you can go 500 meters out and catch, you know, big giant Pacific sailfish and 80-pound wahoo, you know, paddling your kayak 15 minutes from shore. That's pretty special.
Moving forward a little bit, how did you? I like to ask people this question because obviously a lot of the people we talk to, like yourself, are pretty well at the top of the game. Kayak fishing, you are at the tip of the spear as far as my opinion goes on it with you. How did you step up from that first day where you bought a secondhand kayak off Craigslist and then you went out a few mile offshore and just started? What was your step up progression like to catching these absolute giants? And how did you do it? Did you have a mentor? Did you have anyone you worked with, or you just threw yourself in there and worked it out?
Well, I reckon the fuel for all of that is just obsession. You know, like I like, I'll never forget. I was, you know, when I started, all I was doing was chucking hard baits, poppers and minnows and stuff, twitch baits and stuff like that. I fish a lot of yozuris. And I mean, about a month after I started fishing, I'm right up on the rocks and casting in 15 foot of water into the rocks and land like a 30-pound Cubera snapper. I'll never forget that, man. Like, which you're usually going to get smoked by that fish in that depth and that, you know, rocky area. But somehow I landed the fish. And bro, my hair stands up remembering it because I remember putting my hands up onto that gill plate, grabbing that fish, and I dude, there's nobody around. I had no camera at the time. There was nobody to show off for or clown for, and I screamed like this savage, just roar like lizard brain, you know, roar of victory, you know, whatever you want to call it, and you know, anything that makes you feel like that, you're going to do a lot more of it.
Definitely.
But yeah, I also another thing I did that like kind of changed the way. I mean, kind of the way some people kayak fish here. There's nobody who was doing it really in this country when I started, so I didn't have anybody to learn from. I had to make all the mistakes. I had to get hammered in the surf. I had to figure out how to, you know, lash everything down and how to not get, you know, my deck cleaned off punching through. You know, we got some pretty big surf to launch through here, and you know, I made all the mistakes. That's how I learned. but those are good lessons. And I came at it with a freshwater fisherman's mentality because that's all I knew. That's where the hard baits and the presentation. So I can remember asking all the guys in the marina, and like I was a sponge. I'm not too proud to ask people. I was like, how do you do it? What do you do? And everybody was just live bait, live bait, live bait. And I was like, well, what about hard baits? And what about poppers? And what about jigs? And like, that shit don't work here. And that
Yep.
has become, over the years, I've heard that so many times. And I didn't know if it was true or not the first time I heard it. Now I know it's not true. That is my favorite thing in the world to hear. I love when people tell me that what I do won't work. And so, every now and then they're right, but I like proving them wrong. So I took a lot of that thinking into the water and started just fishing the way I knew how to fish. And lo and behold, if that doesn't work, somebody better tell the fish because I don't think they know. It started working pretty good for me.
I think you've proved that wrong, mate.
Yeah.
That whole shit set up.
There was we really. I mean, I think the kayak crew here, and I was probably a big part of that because I was one of the early guys to adopt it. Nobody was jigging in this country 12 years ago. You'd go in the tackle shop and there would be like 10 jigs hanging on the wall. Now there's like an entire wall in the tackle shop that's just covered with all kinds of jigs. So that's really grown here, and that's what I love doing. I'm a jig fanatic.
Yeah, I'm not too experienced with jigging, but I know you obviously top of the game, like I've said. But you get brands actually come to you, don't you, and basically do projects with you just to tap into your knowledge and experience. Do you have any of those projects on the go?
Yeah, I do. I mean, that happens more today, I guess, than it did 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was running around with my hat in my hand trying to get a free lure to fish with because I was broke. And now, life has gotten better and changed and whatever. And I can afford to buy my own stuff. And now, people are asking me like, "Hey, you want this project or that?" Now, I'm a lot more careful nowadays about what I'm willing to take on because, in the beginning, when someone offers you something, you're just so grateful that anybody sees any value in what you're doing. You're like, "Of course," and then you realize like, well, everybody wants their pound of flesh, and now you've taken product and you got to go out there and work with it. So, what if you don't like it? What if it doesn't work? So I ended up in that situation a couple of times, and then I made a decision that I won't work with anybody until I've got some experience with their product and I know that I like using it. So I like it when I'm using someone's product and they see that and they come to me and say, "Would you like support?" Because then I'm getting support on what I'm already choosing to do.
Yep.
So, but
I
yeah,
follow.
I've had a couple of things recently. I started using a new. There's a new company called Delta that's making this really high quality braid. They got a really cool story. I mean, I'll tell that another time. But they're producing what, in my opinion, some of the highest quality braided fishing line on the market right now, and they're just getting into the U.S. market. They came into Costa Rica. We're selling it everywhere here, and they have a jig company too called Blue Crab, and this company started like 2 years ago. I've been using their jigs from the beginning, and I'm kind of the guy. Honestly, I don't believe in color a whole lot. I don't think a lot of things that they put into fishing tackle and lures is designed more to catch fishermen than it is to catch fish. Quite
Yep.
honest. That said, some patterns, some shapes work better than others. I'm still not a big believer in color, but I got some of their jigs and some of their shapes, and man, we just started hammering everything down here. And in less than 2 years, that brand, who nobody had heard of, is a new brand, is outselling Shimano. They're outselling Daiwa. They're outselling Mustad. They're the number one selling jig brand in the country, and we're just kind of stepping into the United States. So they approached me and offered me a great deal, and they give me a lot of support. But it's like I don't work with them because they support me. They support me because I was already having great success with their products.
Yeah. Okay. And do you help them design jigs, or
Well,
you?
yeah, actually, two of the current jigs I helped. I didn't sit down with it and make a CAD drawings or anything, but I gave them. They did ask for my input from my experience about shapes and designs, and I gave it, and they made some jigs kind of to my specs. But right now, as I've gotten to know them better, the owner approached me and said, "Hey, I had an idea that I've had for years for a completely new jigging product," and the owner spoke with me about it. And I'm kind of lead man on the design right now, and we're designing something that I think is going to be a complete game changer in the jigging market. And I hope we're going to bring it to life and have it out in the next year. So that's about all
Really?
about right now. But stay tuned; it's going to
Oh,
be
stay
rad.
tuned.
Yeah,
How good's that, eh?
blue crab jigs. Keep your eyes
Blue
open.
crab. I told you that yesterday. Whenever I think blue crab jigs, I can only think it in your voice.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it.
I'll talk about them a lot. I mean, what else am I going to talk about? I keep pulling up those monsters, and they're hanging out of their mouth. Yeah, I got to say it.
Oh, mate. And what about you've obviously worked your way through a whole different bunch of kayaks. I imagine you're still not on that secondhand Hobie. What's your opinion on kayaks and which one do you currently use?
Well, I mean, I got lots of opinions about everything, but on kayaks, like I started with Hobie and I stuck with them for a long time. It took a long time to get any support out of them, and they were a big company. It's always harder working with big companies, but I did towards the end get a little bit of support out of them, and I caught great fish off their kayaks. My experience, the last couple that I had, I feel like their quality fell off a little bit. Hobie's having a lot of issues right now with management and stuff, and it was time to try something else. So a couple of years ago, I switched over to a different platform from Old Town. It's a very old canoe and kayak maker from the US. And man, the quality on those things is phenomenal. I've never been as happy with an offshore kayak as I am with my current Old Town. It's the salty, which is funny. It's one that some of the Australian guys will know because they bought Ocean Kayaks, the brand, took the Malibu model, which is like probably one of the best selling kayaks ever made, and converted that to work with their pedal drive system, and it's just a phenomenal pedal drive kayak. It's great. I'll share
Sorry.
one other thing. That's the pedal stuff, and there's always this pedal versus paddle, rivalry. I don't participate in that because I like both. I love to paddle too, but when it comes to paddling for me, I think these are kind of big in Australia too. I've had a Stealth Pro Fisher. They're made out of South Africa. Man, what a freaking kayak! Those
Right.
things are phenomenal. I don't have it anymore, but I'm trying to get another one because if you're paddling, it's hard to beat that thing. Amazing for surf launches too because they've got a fish hatch that's so big you can literally stash everything, even your like 7.5 foot rods inside the kayak. And that was my kayak that I used when the surf was bombing. I mean, you can go out and launch and double overhead surf, and even if you get, I mean, you'd be shocked what you can punch through with those things, and they're fast. But even if you get hammered, and you come unglued, you just swim in and get it and flip it over and try again. You don't lose any gear. They're great for surf launches, man. Love them.
Well, one thing I wanted to do here as well, because at the start of this year, I was actually thinking I was, I was like, do I get into kayak fishing or I wanted to maybe look into a small boat or do these trips? I decided to do these trips, these quick ones like I did to New Zealand. But looking into kayaks, use me as a bit of an example for anyone out there who wants to get into kayak fishing. And I know exactly zero. What would you suggest as the very first kayak someone should get? I guess considering price and functionality and ease of use and that sort of thing.
Depends on what you want to do and where you want to launch. It depends on a lot of things, but I'll give you some guidelines. If you're and these are my opinions, but I think there's some validity to them. If your plan is to go out and do a lot of jigging or bottom fishing, it's really difficult to beat a pedal kayak because the level of precision. I'd rather be on a pedal kayak than a boat for jigging because the level
Really?
of precision that you have for staying directly on top of a spot, especially some of these kayaks now that have like an instant reverse. I mean, you can just sit there and pinpoint a bottom spot and sit on it all day with no effort. And you've got both hands free for fishing. You go out and paddling and, you got to position, drift over, get your paddle back out, paddle back to the other side, gauge the current. And I've caught big fish like that, but you miss the convenience of the pedals. On the other hand, if you're out there live baiting or trolling and you're launching through big surf, it's hard to beat something like that Stealth I mentioned. They're great for that. So you got to really look at what your plan is. The real tip I would give to somebody starting out, and this is what I did, and it worked for me. Keep it simple, man. Don't go buy a kayak and a giant crate and a 10-inch depth finder and 6 rod holders, settle down. Go get a kayak. The first few times you go out, bring 1 rod. Because you know what? You might end up upside down, or you might end up having whatever you bring might end up on the floor of the ocean. So keep it simple at first, and like you don't have to rush into it. The less stuff you bring, and I know this is kind of like against the way what a lot of people's mentality, but I'm a minimalist. The less is more, and sometimes. So I still to this day I will only bring 2 rods. I'm launching through surf. I just can't deal with all that stuff. I got 1 dry bag, a bottle of water, a kill bag back there, a PFD, which I don't wear. I keep in the bag. That's another subject we can talk about, which gets people all cranked up. But and I bring my 2 rods, and clearly you want to put leashes on everything, and you start going and catching fish, and you'll figure out real quick what's missing.
Yeah,
You'll
okay.
be out there. You'll be out there, and working your butt off for a month, and all of a sudden you got a 40-pound mahi on. You get him to the side of the boat. You're like, shit, I don't have a gaff. Should have thought of that. But you'll figure it out as you go. Keep it simple at first.
Yep. 1 rod, PFD, and a kayak, and you're pretty good to start.
Yeah, look, bro, I fished for several years here. Most people are not going to do this, but I attribute a lot of my later success to this, what I'm going to tell you. I fished for years here with no sonar, no electronics, no GPS, nothing. And I would go out and I would fish off of visual landmarks. We have some outer reefs that'll kind of boil up. But I would also, I got enough time in the water that I would fish on giant swell. And even, if you know how to read water, you could even be in 60, 80, up to 90 foot of water. And you can read swell lines bending and moving across bottom spots, bottom boulders, even in that kind of depth, if you pay attention. But
Right.
what I really love about spending those first few years without any electronics is as opposed to if you start out with everything, it forces you to become hyper alert and hyper aware of the nature around you. So you're looking at the surface tension of the water. You're looking at you're looking at the birds. You're looking at everything with a depth that you don't look at that when you're staring at a sonar. Now, do that for a few years, and you're going to learn so much that you will not learn fishing with electronics. Most people will not be willing to do it because you're not going to catch as many fish. But I guarantee it will make you a better fisherman. That's my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And that's probably a bit of your surf background coming in as well, I'd
I
say.
think so. Yeah, I think I utilized all of that in my early days, the kayak fishing. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Well, let's open this can of worms of PFDs. You don't have to ask.
I think it's such an interesting topic because it's one of those things, kind of like mask and COVID. Let's don't open that can of worms. But it's one of those things that people like get so emotional about. Like,
I do.
like it's so weird to me. Like I'll be out there fishing and be like, there'll be comments on social media like, "Put on your PFD, you fucking idiot." It's like, what's going on here? Like, why are you so passionate about that? And I get it. I mean, it's like, I guess it's like wearing a seatbelt or whatever. It's probably a smarter option to do that. But I often think when people say stuff like that, I'm like, bro, where were you when I was in, at the hole, like scratching over the ledge into an 8 to 10 footer over dry reef in board shorts? Where were you then? Nobody said anything, but now I'm paddling across flat water in a giant kayak and I'm a lunatic because I don't have a PFD. It's just like, I don't know, man. I don't get it. And here's the other thing. Here's the other part of that I resist. I'm not Superman. I can fall in the ocean and drown. Anybody can, but I'm not going to. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, whatever. But the shit can happen. I agree. Okay. Would I be X%, X whatever amount safer with one on? Yeah, probably. But it's like people like that is not the be all end all of safety on the water. And it's like people want to disregard everything else. So like if you're like this fat, out of shape, never practice anything, you probably have no business out there. But as long as you got your PFD on, you're smart. You don't train, You don't get your body in shape. You've never, tried riding your kayak. You don't know how to re-enter your kayak. You're completely unprepared in every way. But if you're wearing your PFD, everybody will give you the thumbs up. But if Mark Phelps is out there, or Kelly Slater, and sitting on the deck of a kayak without a PFD, he's an idiot because he's going to drown. And it's just such a lunatic argument. I don't know.
I'm hearing you. Yeah, that's not one I've actually mentally. Obviously see the comments everywhere, and it's like, God, did you not see the fish he just caught or what he just did? And it's like PFD, put it on, life jacket.
It's okay, whatever. I mean, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. I don't get my feelings hurt over it. I just think it's odd. And I think some people come at it from the standpoint of well, you have all these eyes on you, so you should be setting a better example. And it's
Yeah,
like,
right. Okay.
I'm sorry, bro, but I'm not your parent, and I'm not your, I'm just a guy catching fish. I can't be your safety hero, whatever. I'm out there catching fish on kayak. If you like watching it, you can watch it. If you don't, no problem.
Yep, no, I'm hearing you. Um, I guess one of the other risks or dangers out there, or people I talk to, because I do like to sponge up the info myself and talk to people when I get the chance, is a lot of people get deterred from kayak fishing because of sharks. So, what
Yeah,
is your whole thought process there? And
I
have you ever
mean,
had any big close calls?
I'm probably a little bit bigger wimp about shark thoughts than some people. Like surfing. If I'm surfing like some sketchy river mouth, I think that I'm a little more shark leery than some guys. But on the kayak, it's like there's so many more things that are more dangerous out there than sharks. Like I think that's such a minimal risk. It's just one of those things people kind of like to be. I don't know if they like to be scared. It's just like it's a very common question. Like, well, you ever seen sharks? It's like, yeah, like whatever, dude. I don't know. Yeah, it's the
Well,
ocean.
you're capturing them. You're pulling them up next to you.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've caught quite a few. Yeah, those sharks, they don't want nothing to do with big old kayak. I'd be more scared of a saltwater, way more scared of a salty than a croc. I
Hell yeah.
shark.
They're my nightmare.
Yeah, because you think about it, like a shark, he's looking up. I mean, the worst that's going to happen is he's going to come up and try and mistake you for something and bite the bottom of your kayak. And I don't want that to happen, especially by a big white or something. But it's a mistake. Whereas if there's a big salty out there, if a big saltwater crocodile is on the bank and you're sitting on a log, he ain't going to come bite the log. He's going to snatch you off that log. And I
Yes.
think he might do the same on a kayak. He
Is
knows what the
over
meat is.
there?
Huh?
Do you get salties and you don't get them in Costa Rica, do
We
you?
get we get well, they're not salties. We get American crocodiles that do come into the salt water, but they're a different species. Yeah, I don't think they're nearly as aggressive as what y'all have.
Yeah, they're
From
terrifying
what
up
I've
there.
heard.
Makes me sick to
But
think about. So sharks
yeah,
aren't really an
bigger.
issue.
I think the bigger risk on the kayak, probably in the tropics. Probably the most dangerous thing out there is outside of the surf launching is like a heat stroke or something. You
Yeah,
can be out
okay.
there 3 miles and it's 100 degrees and you're not drinking enough water or whatever. I mean, I've had days when I start getting kind of dizzy or stuff because I'm so dehydrated or hot and you're pedaling and working. And so, I mean, I think that's a bigger concern than, idea that a shark's going to come get you.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point too, because honestly, that thought never even crossed my mind when I was thinking or considering kayaking. It's heat stroke and issues around that. I never even thought of it.
Yeah. I mean, depending on where you're doing it, it gets like pretty rough out there. I try and launch here it gets daylight at 5 a.m. I launch at the crack of dawn to avoid the wind and the heat that we get at midday here. So my session's usually like from 5 a.m. to 11 or something. I usually do about 6 hours.
Yep. Okay. And so I guess considering sharks, considering surf launching, everything out there. Have you ever had any of those close calls or moments that I guess made you shit yourself out there? That you were a bit concerned?
I mean, I've put a lot of hooks through my body and things like that, sometimes with fish attached. I've had some pretty gnarly wipeouts, surf launching, but coming from a surfing background, it's not really that harrowing. Um, it's the more what gets the adrenaline going when you're about to get taken out by a 6 foot wave launching a kayak is not, oh no, I'm going to drown. It's like, oh no, I'm about to lose $1,200 worth of gear. That's what creates the adrenaline. Like, oh my god, this is going to be expensive.
Yep.
Yeah, no, one story I can tell you. Excuse me. One story I can tell you, and this happened in the very beginning. Unfortunately, this happened before I was carrying a GoPro, so I would love to have this on film. This one definitely would have made a classic highlight reel.
All yours do, mate.
I was fishing on a hard bait casting, and one of our big, what's called a hound fish. It's like a big needle fish, and they get big here, man. I mean, these some of them be like 5 feet long and probably weigh, you know, 6 or 7 kilos. They big, as big around as your calf. And this one was not that big, but anyway, they're just buck wild too. I mean, we call them green marlin. They're tail walking and jumping and just they doing backflips. They're wild. Anyway, I catch this thing and the line goes slack and he's underwater. I'm like, oh my god! I'm praying that he came off because I just know he's probably swimming at the kayak, and they're bad about hooking you or whatever. People have died from them. Actually, there was a kid in Hawaii in a canoe, and it jumped up and speared him right in the eye socket, and you can find this on the internet. This story, it pierced his brain and killed him.
I think I know the type of fish you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
they
been
got like
seeing
a
one
long, like a
video.
on them with lots of little small teeth, kind of like a mackerel.
Yeah, yeah. I've been sent a video.
If you
Like a
Google it
rocket.
too, I know there's a photo on there with a guy with like one going all the way through his neck. It's
Oh,
gnarly. I mean, they're
yeah.
dangerous. So I'm out there doing that, and the line goes slack, and I'm just like kind of like cringing, like not knowing, like reeling really fast, trying to get tight again, not knowing where it's at, and this thing swims straight back at the kayak and hits the surface and jumps and spears me right in the head, cuts my head open. I've got a baseball cap on, and he had like a 6-inch Yozuri in his mouth. The treble hooks go through my hat, through my scalp. So now the lure is like hooked to my head, the other hook dangling right by my eye and my face, and the houndfish is still attached, flopping, hooked to my head. So I just dropped the rod. I grabbed the fish with both hands because all I could think was I got to control this fish first. And right when I grabbed him, he shook really hard and came off. So at least I had the fish off. So now I'm stuck with my hat hooked to my head. And there was a sport fishing boat out there near me, and I pedaled over and told them what happened. I got up in there and got in their fighting chair, like a dental chair, ready for surgery. And I had the mate grab a pair of pliers, and we're gonna try and push the hook through. And he was being a complete pussy about it. And I was like, dude, just grab the hook with the pliers, and I'll grab the pliers and do it. So we pushed it through and cut it off and pulled it out. And I went back and kept fishing. But I jumped off the boat and swam back, got in the kayak, and the tourists on the boat were like, "What the fuck just happened? Who was this guy?" This guy like came over to our boat, jumped on with a hook in his head, jumped in our fighting chair, like dove off like freaking Tarzan. What the fuck just happened? Anyway, it gets weird out there sometimes, and I always fish alone too. You know,
Yeah,
I,
okay.
I love fishing alone. I like launching alone. I like being out there alone. People ask me a lot of times, like, "Hey, let's go kayak fishing together," because that's what normal people do. And I'm always like trying to find some excuse not to go. I do it every now and then, and I have fun when I do it. But 9 days out of 10, I'm by myself out there, and I love it. I love it
One day, mate, when I find my way to Costa Rica, you're going to have to go out with me.
for sure, for sure.
That is insane. It's just wild that, like, an inch or two either way or either side, it's a whole different story.
Yeah. We do this thing too here. Like we get a lot of the pelagics are offshore, so we'll throw a kayak in the bow of like a ponga or a center console and run 40 miles out, and just they'll dump me out there on the yellowfin or in the sailfish, and we've gone out there and caught giant sails, and haven't caught a marlin yet, but I've caught some chunker tuna out there, which is really, quite honestly, no fun at all on a kayak,
Do they
especially.
just play you around?
Nah, man, they hunker down. They go straight down. Especially you're on spin gear because I'm casting, usually throwing poppers or surface lures. So they hit, and that's the first 2 minutes is fun as shit. and then then buckle up for the next hour of grueling. Yeah, it's just miserable. Every time I do it, I come in and it's like a triple digit tuna on the kayak. Think about it, you're in a seated position, so you've got no legs in the game. It's all upper body, and you're basically twisted and turned sideways in this contorted position for like an hour and a half, trying to
Jeez.
wrestle this thing up. And he's just down there doing death circles, 150 feet down. And it's just, they're hard to move, man. They're powerful fish. But every time I do it, and the last one I did, we did a film shoot with Pelagic Gear, my clothing sponsor, and we got like a 130 or 140, solid tuna. Broke the rod halfway through the fight, landed the fish on half a rod, another hour with a half a rod. And I mean, the fish was kind of whipped at that point, but just horse him up that last 150 feet just with a broken rod. But every time I do it, you land the fish, and I'm just like, I am never doing that again. And then like a month later, somebody be like, "You want to go tuna fishing?" I'm like, "Okay, one more time."
Well, they're one of
Well,
my personal favorites because you can't stand up out wide or anything, can you, on the kayak?
well, you can, but like not with a 150-pound tuna on, really. I've got, they make attachments that those old towns have there's a guy that made these attachments specifically for those kayaks, which were really game changers, called a steady stick. And it's like a one piece, like a telescopic stick that mounts to the drive. So it's right in the center of the kayak. And it's all you need because you stand up and you just put one hand on that. It's crazy the amount of balance and control. I mean, you can stand on either rail of the kayak. It's really, really kind of a cool invention. But
Yeah, okay.
that, I'm not gonna, fight a fish like that standing up. It's nice for jigging or just for like stretching out. You get tired of sitting out there, so to be able to like safely stand up in the kayak, it's a nice tool to have for sure.
Well, I've actually seen you from a while back on like a tiny little boat. What is that thing?
Oh well,
What?
I wanted to do a little boat fishing, a little power fishing, get a little further out, get to some different species, get to the wahoo mainly. Uh, we got some good wahoo spots about 20 miles out, which is far too far for the kayak, obviously. So I bought myself a little 12-foot inflatable with a little jockey seat on it, like a jet ski type seat center. And bro, I took that thing everywhere. I got so many. I would take that thing 35 miles offshore.
Really?
Oh yeah, I'd get out to the yellowfin school, and because it was so lightweight, it was easy to beach launch it.
Right.
I got
And
photos. Like, we would be out there, and they'd have like these like 48-foot Vikings out there with like an 8-line spread, and I'd ride by with my 12-foot inflatable. I've got I've got pictures that like boat captains and mates have sent me from like 30 miles out on that thing, and it even looks ridiculous to me looking at it. When you're looking at it at that distance out, it just looks so tiny.
it's
But
so good.
it was very capable. I caught good fish. I caught a lot of good wahoo on tuna.
Yep.
It was fun.
They're a hell of a fish too, the wahoo.
Yeah, I love catching them. I love eating them too. They're such a great fish to eat. Those are one of my favorite my favorite species, but you didn't ask me, but I'm gonna tell you down here anyway.
Go for it.
Wahoo's pretty high up there, but on the inshore, it's hard to beat a big Cubera snapper. Man,
Yeah. Tell me
that's
about it. I've never caught or seen one.
oh my god, they're just beastly fish. They don't fight like a GT, I guess, or anything. What y'all got? But they're very powerful fish. They're not an easy fish to get to bite on artificial, which is all I fish. So it's very rewarding even to hook one. But then when you hook one, that's maybe half the battle because you gotta. It's kind of like a rodeo, that if you don't stop in that first 8 seconds, he's gonna rock you up and it's game over. They go straight into caves and the rocks. So it's really a battle, and that's why it's just so rewarding. I don't really catch that many of them on artificial, but when you do, you did something. It's nice. They
Plenty.
remain one of my prize species to catch always.
Right. And they're good eating too. They don't get worms. They don't get sick
Yeah,
of tin
they're
or
great.
anything.
We try and take it easy on those guys. They're I wouldn't say they're endangered, but they're not. They're a very long living fish. They're prolific if you leave them alone, but they can't handle too much pressure. So I eat a 10 or 20 pounder every now and then, a few times a year, not often, but anything over 30 pounds, I release. The bigger ones, they don't get worms down here, but I've killed a couple of 40 pounders, and you bring that thing home. That fish might be 40 or 50 years old, bro. They live
Wow.
a long time. And you
Yep.
bring the fish home and you fillet it, and you find out that that meat is tough and dry, and it's sad. It's like, what a waste. Why did I do that? So I rarely kill the big ones. I really never kill the big ones anymore.
Yeah. Right. Right. Gotta look after that fishery.
Yeah. I
We
kind
do.
of get I get heat from some of these. Some of the guys are a little more conservationist than I am. I'm a bit of a meat hunter, so I do knock a small one in the head every now and then, and even some people will kind of you know shake their finger at you for that. But it's okay to have dinner every now and then too.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Yeah. As long as you're not knocking them and throwing them back, but if you're eating them, it is what it is. But we're going to have to wrap up here soon, mate. And I know with this and with you, I've been looking forward to chat to you for so long, but we've only literally scratched the surface of your experiences out there, your stories of fish you catch and that sort of thing. So we got to do this 100% again very soon. But can we wrap up with, have you got one super memorable catch or fish or one real standout out there on the water?
Well, I mean, I've got a few. There's something else I kind of wanted to share that I got sidetracked,
Go
talking
for
about.
it.
But we can do both or either or whatever.
No, we got time, mate. Go for it. Go do both.
Yeah, like one thing I wanted to share is like, so there's a couple things. Give me just a minute here.
For gold, mate. You run with it.
One of the challenges of this is, like early on when I started like putting the stuff on the internet and whatever, like, man, I guess everybody's kind of prone to this, but I don't know how well I handle it. The ego can kind of get involved and you start kind of be like, whoa, boy, I really know something or whatever. And I remember when that got corrected, and this is kind of a cool story. I went in 2017, and I was just starting to get a bit of an internet following or whatever, and people were like, "Wow, you're the best," and but I was kind of a big fish in a small pond here. I had a good buddy in New Plymouth in New Zealand. He said, "Man, come fish with us, come hunt with us, come hang out with us, come surf with us." So I went to there for like 6 weeks, and this dude's a savage, Vince Finney. He's a good surfer, good hunter, good fit, good at everything, right? Good old Kiwi. So I went and hung out with him and the boys. And I'm gonna tell you something. I still am ashamed of myself because that first week in New Zealand, I walked around telling people in New Zealand how to do it. Like, oh, this is how you fish, and kind of a little bit full of myself and telling everybody how it's going to work and all this. Looking back, I kind of cringe at that. And then what I found over that next 6 weeks, I was so humbled by the time I left there. Brother, I don't know about everybody in New Zealand, but I ran with a hard crew when I was there. There's some tough son bitches.
There
Uh,
is 100%.
Everything we did, I was like the weak link. Like, bro, these guys out paddled me, they out hunted me, they out fished me, they out surfed me. It's some tough people over there.
They're a special breed.
I walked away from that trip saying, you know what? You need to keep your mouth shut when you go in somebody else's backyard, big boy. Yeah. That was a good, humbling experience. It was very healthy for me going over there and running with those guys. Very
Yep.
healthy. We
I
went
do
out
love
one
fishing
day.
on.
I'm going to tell you a quick story that some
Go
of
for
you
it.
might recognize this name. We went out one day, me and Vinny, on I had a big old long ocean kayak. He's on an 11-foot scrambler, like a little kid's kayak with no rudder, just whatever. We paddle out like 8 kilometers because we heard the albacore out there. And we get out there, and I'm thinking, like, boy, we're kind of badasses, right? We're way out here, freighters passing by and stuff. And we look out there, and there's already 3 guys out there on the kayaks. It's like they beat us out there. And we get a little closer, and one of the guys is this Kiwi legendary outdoorsman named Herb Spanigal. I don't know if you ever, but Herb at the time was, I think, 82 years old. I'm, I'm like, bro, I'm like 40 something, thinking I'm tough as nails. And there's an 80-year-old man out there already with a kayak full of fish already. It was just like this constant lesson in in New Zealand. There's a lot of hard dudes out there, man. There's some tough folks in this world, and there's plenty of them living in New Zealand.
100%. That place is
Right.
just, it's one of the best places in the world.
Yeah, it was
Yep.
awesome. But the other thing I wanted to share is like it's kind of my philosophy about, I guess, about fishing, but it's also about life. I was talking about this the other day. As we get older, like I got a lot of friends in their 60s and 70s who are still really charging the surf or fishing hard or living hard. And it's like, we were talking about it recently. And we're like trying to figure out like what's the secret, like what's the secret sauce? How do you keep surfing? How do you keep charging the surf when you're 70 years old? How do you keep kayak fishing when you're that old? How do you keep boxing? How do you keep fighting? How do you keep doing whatever it is that you do? And we're talking about like, well, is it because, is it the training? Is it the diet? Is it genetics? And I stopped. I said, you know what, man? I think it's kind of like all those things. But the one common denominator I always see in guys who are still living like that later into life is they never stop. They just never stop. It's the consistency, man. And there's no replacing that. And I like people. I used to get mad when I'd catch a big fish. My buddy'd be like, "Oh, you sure are lucky," and my ego would say, "Well, it's not luck, whatever." But then I'm out there working hard and whatever. But I got over that ego. But it's not like I go out and I do well fishing, but so do lots of guys. But it's not like I have some internal gift as a fisherman. You know what it is? I'm not out raising hell and partying all night. I get up at 3:30 in the morning every single day. I got my routine. I'm diligent. I have consistency. I'm on the water. I'm just there. I'm doing it every day. And it's like whatever you want to do, whether you want to play guitar or you want to be a fighter or you want to be a fisherman or a surfer, make it your priority. Practice that consistency and dedication. Whatever. You want to get strong, you want to lose weight, whatever. It's consistency. That's it, man. That's like the secret sauce of all that, I think.
Yep. I think you're dead right there, mate. And I think sprinkling a little bit of passion in there as well is another big key.
Well,
It's just
yeah,
having
well, if you got
passion
the
to drive.
passion, it's a hell of a lot easier to be consistent. But here's the thing, bro. Even if you've got the passion, I've got a passion for fishing. You know what I don't have a passion for? Is sitting there for an hour at night prepping all my gear. I hate it. I
I
hate
love
it.
doing that.
Oh, then, you might have you a job here. But it's like, but what I'm saying, even stuff you're passionate about, you might be passionate about boxing, but that doesn't mean you're passionate about doing, 1,000 sit-ups every day or jumping rope for 45 minutes. Like
Definitely.
it still takes the diligence and the consistency. I might be passionate about making music, but to do the exercises on the guitar or the piano that you need to do, like it still requires that will and the consistency and the diligence. And like you do what you do and you get what you get in this life. If you want good things, then put the work in.
Couldn't agree more, mate. Could not agree more. And that's what this is all about.
I'd like to mention one other thing. As part of all this building this name and building the fishing, I had an opportunity several years ago to design some outdoor knives, and that was really rewarding too. And
Yeah, I saw those. Tell me about those.
I had a couple of knives. I had a fixed blade knife that I made specifically for like fishing and outdoors, and not just fishing. It was for fishing, hunting, and all outdoors. It was a completely rust-proof knife made by a company called Spyderco, and they produced that knife, and people liked it. So I made a folding version of that. So I also designed a folding knife. Both of those came out kind of in those COVID years, and have since been discontinued. But I've got a couple of new designs coming out with the same company. I've got one of my fillet design. So I've got a fillet knife, which I call a kitchen fillet. It's a knife that's kind of designed to be used as a kitchen knife and as a standalone fillet. And also, we're making a more economical version of my original fixed blade. So just thought it would be nice to have everybody check out Spyderco. They're not out yet, but they should be here in the next year or so. They're in the works.
Yep. No, mate, we'll chuck it all in the bio. I'll get all this info off you as well afterwards, and we'll put it all below, and we'll throw it in any Instagram post we do for sure. It's special stuff you're making.
Great, man. It was a real honor talking to you, Dan. Like I said, I watch y'all's content, and you guys have some really special people in there. You got some savages on there on the surf end. So even to
I,
be considered in that company, I feel very honored. So thank you for inviting me.
No, mate, it's well deserved, 100%. Like you're right up there with them. So I knew this was going to be a special podcast. It obviously exceeded that because you are a special dude, and I know you're pretty humble. But we got to definitely get you back on here to tell some of these stories. I'll drag the info out of you and run through it, mate. But for everyone out there, check out Lance's page. It's just the fish he gets off a kayak. He's got receipts. He's got the proof there, and it's incredible. Lance is an incredible dude. Check him out. All his gear, those blue crab jigs you were talking about. We'll put everything in the bio, but check it out. And Lance is definitely going to jump back on, mate. But I do really appreciate your time, Lance. I know it's late over there. And we'll have to do this again very soon.